In this video, I'm going to look at how to change the parts that are controlled by the keyboard and how to switch them for different parts of your song using scenes. Let's head back to Performance Home, and we can see that on the overview, every single one of these parts has the keyboard control icon enabled, which means that when I press any key, all of those parts will play. Let's turn off the drums for now and change this so that when I start out, only the piano plays. I'm going to do that by turning off keyboard control for all the parts except for the piano. And now I just have the piano part playing. Any of the parts that don't have keyboard control enabled can be played by selecting them . But as soon as you return to the performance as the selected item, then only items with keyboard control will play. What I'm going to do next is set up scenes so that these parts can come in and out depending on the part of the song that we're playing. We already looked briefly at the scene system, but in this performance we have just one scene and the others are all blank. So I'm going to leave part 1 as is. This will be the part with only the piano selected. But now I'm going to turn on the bass and I'm going to make it so that that becomes available when I switch to scene 2. So let's quickly go to scene here, go to scene 2 and say that I want to be able to control keyboard control for that scene. Let's do the same for scene 1. So we'll go back to the Performance Home and Shift 2 to save this configuration of the keyboard control to scene 2. Let's switch back to scene 1 and see what happens. Because we didn't specify that scene 1 had keyboard control before we added scene 2, that currently has taken on the settings that we set for scene 2. So let's undo that and shift scene for scene 1. And now I should be able to switch between scene 1 and scene 2, and you'll see that part 4 activates and deactivates. Now let's bring in the pad for scene 3. So once again, I'll go to scene and scene 3 until I want to include keyboard control. And while we're here, let's do the same for scene 4 because I'm going to be using that too. And let's even do scene 5. And then let's go and program the owner. So in scene 3, I want to have the pad come in. So we'll store that to scene 3. And then for scene 4, I want both of these pads. And now finally for scene 5, I want everything on. So let's just check that that worked. In scene 1, I have just the piano. In scene 2, I should add the bass. In scene 3, my first pad should come in. In scene 4, both pads will be available. And in scene 5, we should hear the drums. If we go back to the scene overview, there are far more controls that can be assigned to scenes than just keyboard control, and one of those is arpeggios. So let's go back to Performance Home because I want to show you the different arpeggios that are assigned to this particular drum kit. I'm going to solo this so that we're not hearing the rest of the parts play. On Montage and Montage M, you can control the arpeggios using the button grid. There will be up to 8 assigned to each kit. We can switch those here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my scene utility and say that scene 5 also includes ARP control, and it will select ARP 1. Scene 6 is going to have ARPs and keyboard control, and it's going to select ARP 3. Maybe not. That'll do. So let's go back to Performance Home and hear what the difference is. We'll start off with scene 1. Bring in scene 5, which has the drum part starting, and you see that the ARP selected is part 1. I'm just going to adjust the levels of that choir. And then if we switch to scene 6, you should see the arpeggio switch to number 5. If we return to the scene overview, you can see that there are lots and lots of parameters that can be attached to scenes, including the state of the super knob and how it's linked to the assignable knobs, although we'll deal with that in another video. You can assign the mixing parameters, which include things like the state of the mute and solo of each part and also the levels of each part. Keyboard control we've dealt with. The AEG would be the amplitude envelope generator, so you can set the attack, decay, sustain and release of each part and store that with the scene. And finally you have the arpeggio and motion sequence effects. So I'm not going to get into all of that now, but all of those things are available for you in scenes, and you work with them in exactly the same way as we've just done with keyboard control and arpeggios. In the next video we'll look at Control Assign, which is one of Montage's most impressive party pieces, which allows you to assign any aspect of the sound to any one of the controls.